Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to review a recent movie from, was it last year? Did it come out last fall or something? A movie that kind of was one of these movies that became like popular among people and stuff, and I was just like, yeah, usually when it's so funny because it's kind of reversed. Like for me, like when a movie like this is like, people say, oh, it's good or whatever, usually the word around the campfire is that something, movie is good or whatever. I generally don't maybe end up liking it, and then if they say it sucks, like Tron Ares, then I end up liking it. So I really had no intention of really seeing, obviously paying money to see it. Turns out it ended up being free if you've got a Prime membership, which my mom does, so I was able to see this, stopping on by to review the film by the name of Weapons. So I have actually reviewed back in the day, when it was kind of new, I think, on streaming. I don't think it's ever come out on a home on Blu-ray or DVD or 4K, to my knowledge. Barbarian. I did see Barbarian online back in the day. Like I say, I don't know if that's on disc yet or not. But either way, it doesn't matter because I don't really like it. So if you've seen my Barbarian review, you probably know how I feel about Weapons. Weapons was distributed by frickin' Warner Brothers, and incidentally is on disc. I think 4K and Blu-ray and possibly DVD, I would imagine. And maybe it is. Is it 4K? It doesn't really matter, but it's on disc, for sure. Weapons, and it's one of these movies that came out and then like slowly over days or weeks or whatever, like word of mouth, and people are saying it's good, or you got to see this, you blah blah blah. And one thing I will say positive about Barbarian is like I liked the first, maybe the first half hour or something of Barbarian, and I thought the cinematic style was competent and stuff, and aspects of Barbarian, and like I say, the first third was probably my favorite, or first third or 20 minutes, whatever, and so it's not like, the filmmaker, or, he's probably not shooting on film, but the movie maker is definitely has strengths, or competencies and stuff. But this time out, I don't think I'm gonna. Yeah, I think we'll just do a spoiler free review. That way it can be less long as well. So I'm not gonna. I used to spoil stuff, and now I'm just like, let's not spoil stuff, and the review will be less long. But it's one of these movies that you kind of, personally, I kind of roll my eyes when you've got one of these movies. I think I can say this without spoiling it, that it's like a Quentin Tarantino kind of like time jumps all over the place kind of thing. And personally, I don't quite understand the reason for. To me, like anytime there's a movie where it jumps all around like that, it's almost like the scenario isn't any interesting if it's played linearly. So it's we have to switch up the time frames to make the movie interesting, kind of a thing. But I'm sure everyone knows that at some random time in the morning, 2 something or other a.m., these kids in this town or whatever go running out the front door of this stupid, which is now, it's going to be parodied apparently in the upcoming scary movie. The kids go running out the doors with their arms up, kind of like in a, I don't know, not a complete airplane, but kind of an airplane, just kind of a lame ass thing, and with their arms kind of extended to their sides, running out, all running this way and that way, and they're all running out. So the whole movie is about Josh Brolin is, oh, and there's one kid. Oh no, never mind. It's all these kids, but one kid in this classroom, this grade school classroom, and the teacher is this woman who annoyed me in the most recent Wolfman movie. I'm like, back in the day, they used to put attractive women in movies, but maybe not so much anymore. I mean, it's not there's it's not like there's no attractive women in movies anymore, but it's definitely more of a kind of a recent trend where, so the woman who kind of annoyed me in Wolfman just is in this movie as well, and she's the teacher who, her class, all the kids disappeared except one. And the whole movie is basically unraveling the mystery of it. And I think one thing I will say is Josh Brolin is a father of one of the kids in her class, so he thinks she's, as does, the movie does start in a kind of interesting way where you're kind of in the seat of one of the parents of one of the kids in the classes, where it's like you kind of just, well, you just assume that the teacher is in on it, or the teacher's evil, or the teacher, you know, somehow made the kids do this or whatever. So the whole movie is just like, I think it's 2 hours long. It's just the mystery, unraveling pulling on the threads and unraveling the mystery, and it's done, as I said, in a kind of non-linear, we see this happen, and then we'll see this happen, and then that kind of winds into that, and then we'll see this happen, and that winds into this. And I'm not saying that, if you like that kind of thing, I will say that, which I kind of like linear. That's why In a Violent Nature is just so much my kind of movie. I like linear. I think that life is linear, and I like just linear movies. Like to me, like when you're trying to do non-linear stuff and you have it jumping all around and this and that, it's like you're just trying to be, in my opinion, just too fancy schmancy. And again, if you look at Pulp Fiction and you kind of look at all the events and put them in order, and if you were just to re-edit Pulp Fiction and have everything happen in order, I mean, it wouldn't be nearly as like entertaining as it is. So it's kind of like, to me, a lot of times, maybe not in this case, but maybe in Pulp Fiction's case, like you just take a scenario and how can we make it more interesting? Oh, we can switch the order in which stuff happens, and then it'll be more, the same synopsis, or the same, not synopsis, the same story, the same series of events, just switched around can become more interesting than they would be linear. But admittedly, if you like non-linear, kind of movies where it jumps all over the place, I mean, I will say that, not that I'm a huge, the perfect person to judge this kind of stuff, because I don't really like it, but I think it's done relatively well, where it's like, okay, we'll show this, and then we'll show that, and then we show, and that connects into that, and like I said earlier, but yeah, one of the things I was really wondering about as the months went on, and I intended to see it, obviously, when it became watchable for free. One of the things that I didn't understand is that the woman's goofy face and glasses and this lipstick that kind of almost covers the whole bottom half of her head, or her face, and just that weird character. I didn't know if that was like a man dressed up as a woman. Like, I didn't know what the hell that was about at all. And you find out what it's about, and since this is like a mostly spoiler free review, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I will say that it's like, in my opinion, it's funny because it's like I'm not keen on the non-linear aspect of the movie, but in my opinion, the non-linear aspect of the movie is probably the movie's biggest strength, because, as I said, and that's probably why they did it that way, because if you just look at the scenario for what it is, it's kind of like, oh, that's it. So when you do find out, I guess the reason for things happening, it's kind of like, that's it, and or whatever, and yeah. So I will say, like, if I had to rank, this compared to Barbarian, I definitely prefer this to Barbarian. And of course, just like with Barbarian, you'll have that imagery towards the end of just a lanky, old naked woman, and it's just like, what is with this guy, this movie maker? And now you have an older kind of, luckily she's not naked, but kind of a creepy woman in this. Like, he must have, I don't know what, if he had like some grandma that tormented him as a kid or what, but yeah. So if there was a Blu-ray sitting here of Barbarian, which I don't think there is, because I don't think it's on Blu-ray, but if it was, and then there was a Blu-ray of Weapons, and they said you have to pick one, you have to take home for free, I'd say, okay, I'll pick Weapons. And then the title is kind of like, what the hell, Weapons? And I still think the title's kind of stupid, and I don't know, yeah, it's a shame what happened to like the horror genre and so many, obviously I'm biased. It came from the 80s, and grew up in the 80s, came, late 70s and all of the 80s, and what was going on during that time, of course, in the good old days was the slasher movies and this and that and stuff. So to me, that's like, I mean, those are horror movies and stuff. But this kind of, I don't know what you'd want to call it, just new wave or 21st century horror is just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, there's, and again, I'm, as I said a bazillion times on this channel, I'm more of a kind of a physical, well, of course, I guess the antagonist is physical, but there's a little mumbo jumbo. I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, but just yeah, I can't say it without spoiling it. Mumbo jumbo, is that the correct term? I don't know, but just yeah, just the like non-linear, and I also don't like just like the. I'm just trying to think of what I can say without spoiling stuff, but I can't say a lot, I guess, without spoiling it. But at the end of the day, I guess I like it more than Barbarian. But it is kind of a shame, what happened to horror, and that makes me all the more grateful that things like In a Violent Nature and the hopefully, I mean, I don't see how I'm not gonna like In a Violent Nature too, but it's that's why I really love when something like In a Violent Nature and hopefully the sequel come out, because it's like, okay, now that's my kind of horror. Just frickin', not just, well, I don't know what the second movie's about, but the first one's linear. It's just so beautifully linear, and this and that, and simple. And in closing, when a movie does the non-linear thing where it's jumping all around, it just feels to me like it's just saying, like, look, Ma, look at how fancy I am. Look at how cool I am. How I can, do this and that and stuff, and I can be so, just moving all around. Ooh, look at Ma, big deal. But my star rating for Weapons, I don't think, I mean, it's not really my kind of movie per se. The one thing I will say it does have going for it is the way, even though I don't like the non-linear aspect of it, it's the way the mystery is unraveled of what's going on is competent, and it does obviously keep your attention. This is a kind of a movie that is kind of viewed, I mean, best viewed on the initial viewing. Like I can't imagine ever really, I don't see myself ever wanting to see this again. Like when it's revealed, then it's kind of like, oh, I don't have to see this again, because the strength of it is like unraveling the thread, and once the thread's unraveled, it's like, oh, well, I don't need to see that again. So my star rating for Weapons, I can go as high as 1.5 stars out of 4 stars. Not not necessarily my forte. And I guess one thing I can say about it, not that it's a hot sex scene or anything, but there's like abbreviated sex in it. I talk about how in the good old days in the 70s and the 80s, horror movies just stopped to like just have a full-on nude sex scene, and well, even like Terminator, we'll just horror movies and rated R action movies used to just stop for a nude sex scene with topless women and whatever, and we'll stop and have a sex scene now. And obviously it's no nudity, fortunately, because it's the woman from Wolfman, but it's no nudity or abbreviated sex scene or whatever. But I complain so much on this channel that horror movies now is no sex in movies anymore. Well, there's like abbreviated sex in this, I guess. It's nothing that, it's more like the way it's presented in this. It's more a turn off than anything. But yeah, there's my I figured since I saw it for free, and this is a movie review channel, I would review the movie on this channel. So I guess that pretty much does it. Feel free to let me know if you've seen this movie, or if you're interested in seeing it, what you think about it, or well, if you haven't seen it, you're not going to know. If you've seen it, let me know how you feel about it. If you haven't seen it, let me know. Like, if you haven't seen it, I don't know what you could let me know. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.